There's an old expression, you can never get enough of what you don't need. Or, with more property comes more anxiety. In our minds and our hearts, we know this to be true, but we haven't seemed to be able to do anything about it. Paul Burton, the editor-in-chief of the Hamilton Spectator, has weighed in on this in his new book. It's called Shopomania, Our Obsession with Possession. And Paul Burton joins us now here in the studio. Great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
I really did enjoy the book, which surprises me because I hate shopping, but you've really nailed it here. And let's set up our discussion with the following quote from your book. You write, "We shop because we are happy and we shop because we are sad. We shop because we have too much money or not enough. We shop to give our lives purpose. We shop for recognition. Much has been written about people who shop not to acquire stuff, but to assuage anxiety, boredom, heartache, illness, or imminent death." Paul, how long have we been like this?
Oh, I think we've been like this since we stopped hunting and gathering. And the moment that we didn't have to carry stuff around, we started appreciating, shiny rocks on the ground and probably even before that.
So that is more than a couple of decades ago. We're going way back.
Yeah.
Here's how you described some that you saw a long way from here. And let's do another graphic here, shall we? Bright-eyed, friendly, and constantly smiling, they appeared to have no manufactured toys. There was, of course, no television, no packaged goods, no games, no puzzles, very little furniture, no Western items whatsoever. But they did not seem unhappy. In fact, quite the opposite. High on the cold and windy Himalayan plateau, the weather bleak and unforgiving most of the year, the visitors few and far between, modern entertainment in short supply and provisions scarce even if you could afford them, yet life went on cheerfully. They did not appear to want for anything. Who are these people and why are we not more like them?
That was a family I stayed with when I was traveling in Ladakh, which is in northern India. And I was struck by especially the children who were, without toys and the modern conveniences and always smiling and always happy. I was cold, so I would have appreciated some heat. But, they were rosy-cheeked playing outside all day and having fun.
And they didn't seem, in your judgment, to think that they were missing anything by not having all the consumer goods we drown in.
Yeah, I think when they see travelers with gadgets today, they might be intrigued by, well, they probably all have a cell phone now. Do you know what I mean? Or, whatever is coming down the pipe. But they don't have the ability to purchase much of it, and probably not much of it is arriving there. Although I haven't been in years, so for all I know, it's a big shopping mecca.
There are those among us, the super rich, who apparently need 50 cars, 10 houses, thousands of pairs of shoes, etc. Why?
Well, if you, the book talks a bit about Elton John or Nicolas Cage. They're big shoppers, and I have a lot of fun with them, and they have a lot of fun shopping. I think that they just can't help themselves. Nicolas Cage had 9 Rolls Royces and 15 houses. There's no explanation for it other than they're addicted.
Does more stuff bring you more happiness?
More stuff could bring you more happiness, but the evidence shows that it doesn't really. Some stuff, of course, makes us comfortable. I mean, we want a comfortable house and clothes that are warm and food to eat. But I don't know how anyone could be more happy with 9 Rolls Royces than 1.
You don't have 9 Rolls Royces? No, I guess you don't. Your newspaper, the Hamilton Spectator, where I actually worked once upon a time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how many years ago that was. About 43. Yikes. Told a story of a woman named Sharon who won $10 million in the lottery. What happened to her?
Yeah, we wrote that story and called her the penniless millionaire. She won $10 million, like so many other lottery winners, and I cover a few of them in the book. They went immediately on a shopping spree, bought McMansions and more cars than they needed, and went on trips and gave a lot away to their friends too and had fun, and then realized just a little bit too late that the bank account was emptying more quickly than they had anticipated, and that I think she had 3 kids who needed an education, and she also needed a place to house them. And in the end, we revisited her years later, and she was riding an electric bike and taking the subway and back at work, and said life has more meaning when you're not shopping.
Now, yeah. I do like the fact that you don't spare yourself in this book, because you do point out that you bought yourself once something called a storm glass. What is that?
Yeah, I was in one of those typical museum stores. This one happened to be at the Botanical Gardens at Cornell University in New York, and I was intrigued by it in the store, bought it carelessly, brought it home, took it out of the package, and then looked at it and said, what am I going to do with this? You know, a storm glass is supposed to predict the weather, but, you know, we have all kinds of fancy machinery, none of which I use or ever read the newspaper weather page or anything like that. I don't know why I bought it.
And where is it now?
It's still on my wall. I put it there as a reminder of a miss shop, as I say in the book.
A miss shop, okay. And that's not the only example I hasten to add here, because you once, I'm going after you again, you once camped out overnight in front of a store with your son so you could be among the first in line to buy, of course, the latest incarnation of some kind of video game, and it was November, so not exactly, you know, a beautiful summer night. Why did you do that?
Well, he asked me, he was about, I don't know, 12 or 14 at the time, a product was coming. It was the perfect example of a shopomania where there's a limited amount of product and a lot of demand for it. And he said, "Hey, Dad, can we get one of these? And I need to camp out overnight to get it at the Best Buy or wherever it was, the Future Shop." I said, "You got to be kidding me, you know." He said, No, we need to get in line." So I said, "Okay, well, we'll go over at night at 10 o'clock and see if there's a lineup. If there is, we'll wait in line." But I, of course, thought that was preposterous. There'd be no lineup there. And so we drove over, and he said, "I'll just put some deck chairs and sleeping bags in the car, Dad, just in case." And when we got there, oh my goodness, a lineup was already beginning. He said, "Quick, let's get in line."
So you did, and
So
you got it.
We sat there all night long.
You went
And we
overnight.
got it, yeah.
Here's another quote from the book. "We wanted it rather than needed it, and now we realize we can't use it, but we're stuck with it. It looked so good in the store, we decided to buy 8 packages. But now it is at home, we realize it is quite useless, and we put the other 7 packages in the basement or garage. Our heirs will shake their heads in disbelief when they clean out the garage when we're dead and gone. We overshopped." This is from your book, and I put that on the record because you and I both know some fairly respectable people who have overshopped. Can I show you an example? Look at the monitor here in the studio.
What was Jesus Christ really like? Was he gentle, meek, and mild, as the old hymn has it? He was nothing of the sort. Was he the Prince of Peace? Not if you believe his own words. And was he as fond of his mother as popular tradition suggests?
Now, that is one of the country's greatest ever writers and broadcasters. Do you know who that is?
I certainly do.
Who is that?
That's my father.
Yes, that was the great Pierre Burton, your dad, who you tell us in the book had 150 bow ties and 50 pair of cufflinks. How come?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose, I mean, his bow tie was a signature, so he needed a lot of them, although 150, come on. And the cufflinks, I think he just collected. He had a million collections. He had a collection of masks. He and my mother had a collection of masks from around the world, which were terrifying to me as a child. But yeah, the house, it was a chaotic house that was full of a lot of stuff.
Was he an overshopper?
I don't think he had time to be much of a shopper, but he indulged himself. And I'm sure he had a lot of stuff that he regretted.
There is this funny expression that shopping is sort of retail therapy. Some people are actually quite afraid of that retail therapy. Why is that?
I think that people are nurtured by stuff, and the continuous flow of it through the house or through their person helps make a boring day brighter. And I know that we all feel that. Even I feel that when I acquire something. Like the storm glass, for example. It's not until you get it home you go, "Oh, I've got buyer's remorse already," and it's only been 4 hours.
How much shopping is done to keep up with the Joneses, as the expression goes?
Well, that is a huge thing. That's 30 or 40 or 50% of it. We want status. We want to be part of a group. We want to be part of a community that has it, and we want to be part of that conversation.
Is that necessarily, therefore, a bad thing?
Shopping is not a bad thing. Shopping is a good thing. Shopping, as I say in the book, I mean, without shopping, we wouldn't have math and languages and innovation and exploration and all kinds of great stuff. But over shopping, one Rolls Royce, maybe it's good. That's debatable, but 9.
You probably don't need 9. Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary was a guy named Steve Mnuchin, and his wife, Louise Linton, once posted a shot of herself getting off Air Force One, and this was the copy that was associated with this, I don't know, was it an Instagram post? I think it was. Here we go. There it is. Great #day trip to #Kentucky, Linton wrote. #nicest #people, #beautiful, #countryside, I don't know what kind of pants these are. Roland Mouret pants, is that how you say that? #Tom Ford Sunnies, #Hermes scarf, #Valentino rock stud heels, #Valentino, #USA. My question is, who does that in one of the poorest states in the United States?
Yeah. Well, she took a lot of heat for that at the time, as you may recall. And I think this is status gone awry, trying to impress everyone with what you're wearing and what you own or what you have or your so-called good taste. And so many of us in a modern world are simply not aware of what people don't have.
But, you would have thought that being married to a multimillionaire as she was and showing up in Air Force One as she did, that you wouldn't necessarily have to be why would you lord it over people like that? I still am.
It's never enough. And that is one of the conclusions of the book. It's never enough.
This all might be amusing, and a lot of the book is very funny, actually, as you read it, except for the fact that too much over shopping may in fact be killing our planet. Do you believe it is?
I certainly do believe it is. And in fact, that's the theme of the book. It's often silly, but always serious, this book. And if you think of the amount of garbage, just simply garbage that we're shipping to the developing world, or garbage that's filling up our own suburbs or rural areas or
landfill sites.
I mean, as I talk about in the book, there are landfill avalanches in some of these countries where we've shipped so much garbage and people are climbing through it looking for stuff. The society we live in makes it far too easy to throw stuff out and far too easy to buy it. So we've really got to twist that around a bit.
What does that look like, that twisting around? What should we be doing?
I think the first thing we could start with is municipalities should start charging more for garbage. So in most municipalities, although not all of them, a few progressive ones charge per bag, but most of us get to put anything to the curb for free once a week. And so therefore, when we're buying stuff, we're not thinking about how to get rid of it. We know we can just drag it to the curb and it'll be gone in a week. If we made it expensive to take it to the street, then we would, 1, stop buying it, or 2, tell manufacturers we don't want all the packaging. And that's a big part of the problem, is the packaging, not necessarily the stuff.
Right. Consumers have power. Why are we not exercising it more?
Yeah, exactly, because we don't have to. It's too easy.
Now, you said in the midst of that first answer there, we can put out as many bags by the curb as we want for free. Others would argue we actually pay for the right to do that through our property taxes. Not the case?
No, exactly. We pay through our property taxes, but why not lower our property taxes and increase the price of garbage disposal? Therefore, everyone wins, right? If you want to put out more garbage, put out more garbage, but you'll have to pay for it. Now we're all paying the same amount, so it doesn't do me any good, any financial good, to sort of reduce my footprint, which is what I try to do.
No incentive to be smarter.
Exactly.
Everyone from Jesus Christ to Rabbi Hillel to Henry David Thoreau has said something along the lines of, be on guard against covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. In other words, this has been established wisdom, what you're suggesting, for a very, very long time. Why do we refuse to get the message?
Because people like stuff. People like stuff. We can't stop that. We can only try and think about it more and say, how much do you really need? And there's a lot of passages in the book, as you know, about people who collect stuff. You know, Jay Leno has 100 cars, and Tom Hanks collected 250 typewriters. And of Corbin Berenson, for some reason, has 8,000 snow globes. I mean,
8,000 snow globes.
8,000 snow globes. It's a human thing. We all have a little collection. I don't think I do, but I have books, as I talk about in the book. I have a lot of books, and I still got a lot of books, even though I'm sort of shuffling them out of the house regularly.
Have we got ourselves into a situation, though, where so much of our economic well-being depends on people who shop too much?
It does. Presidents and prime ministers around the world say, is your life better now than it was 4 years ago? Can you do more shopping? Do you have more stuff? And indeed, the retail sales are one of the leading economic indicators. So there's no way around that yet. Although, as I say in the book, who is it? Douglas Copeland, I think he says, there's no shopping in Star Trek, which is this great quote.
Yeah, he's right about that. You remember what George Bush said after 9/11? One of the first things he said?
He said, go about your daily business is the best way to, beat the terrorists, which was, of course, shopping.
Go shopping, yeah. He basically said go shopping as a cure for terrorism.
Yeah.
We knew what he meant, right? We knew what he meant. Do you think it has to be this way?
I don't think we're ever going to stop shopping. I think people like stuff. I do think that it doesn't have to be this way exactly. I think that we can temper our desires, understand our obsession with possession. I think that we can be told that we can't keep throwing this stuff out. And I think the only way to tell us to rid of this, as I said earlier, is to make that expensive. And it's going to be expensive. We don't really have to lobby governments for this. They're going to realize it on their own.
Mm-hmm. You say we can do it, but will we do it?
I think that we will. I'm optimistic. I believe that the world will get better, that there still will be shopping. There just won't be so much of it, or it will be done in a different way, or it will be more sustainable, or it will be in a circular rather than a linear fashion. I mean, the life of a good.
I appreciate your desire to be optimistic, but I'm going to bring you crashing down to earth now by saying that if we do what some people suggest, meaning that, let's take the lawnmower. There are, let's say, a neighborhood of 20 houses. Probably pretty much all of them are going to have their own lawnmowers, even though 99.9% of the time, all those different lawnmowers are going to sit in the garage and do nothing because they're used so rarely. If we did, as many people suggested, and that is, let's say, pooled our resources, we're going to buy one lawnmower for the whole neighborhood. You cut the grass on Monday, you cut yours on Tuesday, yours on Wednesday, etc. That way, we can all get away with one lawnmower instead of 20. That might make more environmental sense. It could also put a lot of people who make lawnmowers out of business. How do we deal with that conundrum?
Well, I don't know. I once belonged to a tool library, and I actually borrowed a lawnmower every week for a while. It lasted only 3 years, and then I was stuck without a lawnmower and without neighbors cutting my grass. But I think that we have to get there. Book libraries are the best example, right? You're reading a book once. Some of us refer to books regularly, but most of us read the novel and then don't need it again. We can share these things better. What it will do for the economy, I don't know, but the economy has suffered worse shocks in the past. Just most recently, the pandemic is a good example, or all kinds of other ones. We'll emerge from it as a different world and in a sort of a different consumer society, and it'll all be fine.
I guess the last question is, do you actually want people to shop for a book called Shopomania?
Well, as I say in the book, a friend who read the manuscript said, why don't you call it Don't Buy This Book? So I hypocritically tossed that one out. But yeah, I think that there is a good message for all of us to be had in the book about the environment and possession and consumerism.
It is a delightful read. Shopomania, Our Obsession with Possession. And it's brought Paul Burton to our studio tonight. Paul, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.